The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Study after study has shown that immigrants have a positive impact on the economy. Besides bringing new ideas and fresh perspectives, they also preserve existing jobs, and they create new jobs and stabilize and strengthen our housing market.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. 2 years ago, Mayor John Kramig launched an initiative to make Cincinnati more welcoming for immigrants, especially those who come with high-level skills in the STEM sector, the sciences, including medicine, technology, engineering, and math. A coalition of organizations anchored by the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber leads this effort through the Center for New Cincinnatians. This week, that effort attempted to put some numbers on the role of immigrants in the local economy, especially those working in the STEM sectors. To explore those numbers, I am joined this morning by Mary Stagaman, the Senior Inclusion Advisor for the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber. In that capacity, one of her responsibilities is the leadership of the Center for New Cincinnati. It's a portal for immigrants. Mary, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Nice to be here, Dan.
This is interesting that this whole effort was launched by Mayor Kramig 2 years ago, and now in the midst of this presidential election, the whole question of immigration is center about what's the role in our economy. And not only that, but even the question about M1B visas, which are the visas that allow these high talented technical people. And I just want to point out something that the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, said back in March. He said, "I know H-1B very well. It is bad for business and it is bad for our workers, and we should end it." What do you say to that? Because that's not what your report is saying.
Well, just to be clear, first of all, it's not my report. The report that was issued this week was from the Partnership for a New American Economy, which is a nonpartisan organization that advocates for sensible immigration reform here in the U.S. And we would agree with their position that actually H-1B visas are a very good thing for our country. Just one example from the report is that close to 30% of the physicians in this state are foreign-born individuals. So the H-1B visa makes it possible for doctors and engineers and architects and other highly skilled professionals to fill jobs that are otherwise open in the Ohio economy.
But I think some people would say, and I think Trump's trying to stir it up, to say that if those people weren't allowed to come in and work, that would be open jobs up for native-born Americans.
Well, like you, I'm still digging into the numbers in the report, but one thing that jumped out at me was that in those high-skilled areas, there are sometimes 17 to 20 openings for every single skilled person already in the state. So it doesn't look like we're taking jobs away from natives by bringing people in on H-1B visas, or by retaining graduates of our universities who could stay if there were more visas available.
Yeah, that raises another question, but let me make one technical point here. H-1B visas, there's only 85,000 that are allowed in the country in a year, and you spread that over the entire economy, it's not very many.
No, it's not at all. In fact, rumor has it that on the day that those visa applications are due, hundreds of FedEx trucks line up to turn them in to the government so that the applications so far exceed what's available right now. And we really need to look at raising that cap. The Chamber is highly supportive of sensible immigration reform, and one of the things we've been advocating for is raising the cap on H-1B visas, because we're sending a lot of the terrific talent that we're educating in our American universities back to their home countries, even though they want to stay here and work in this country.
We know you have a long career at the University of Cincinnati before you joined the Chamber. And we both know that especially in those graduate programs, highly technical programs, there's a lot of foreign-born students who come here.
Right.
is there a way? Is the H-1B the only way to be able to keep them here?
So to give you an example, just this week, I was talking to someone with an arts organization here in Cincinnati that was looking for a business analytics person. And they had 2 candidates, both of whom were recent graduates of the program at the University of Cincinnati. About 50% of the people in that master's program are foreign born. And so they had 2 candidates, both highly qualified, but both individuals who were not born in the U.S. So they picked a candidate. There's a process by which that graduate can stay in the U.S. for at least a year, maybe as long as 3, using vehicles that are available. But the question they had for me is, can you refer us to someone to help us start the H-1B visa process? Because when that 3 years runs out, they got to have that visa, or that person will have to go back to their home country and they will have already become a valued employee in the organization.
Which is just the point, that about the time that you become a valuable employee, you've got enough experience with the organization, with the economy,
Right.
with whatever.
Right.
You're out of school, and then you're
Well,
losing
it's exactly
that
right,
status.
Dan. And I think, at the Chamber, at the top of our strategic plan now is to attract and retain the talent that we will need for the future. Mm-hmm. And as we look around the country at regions that are growing their population, and more important, growing their labor force, the top regions are doing it through in-migration of newcomers, and a high percentage of those newcomers are immigrants. Mm-hmm. to this country, they're coming directly into those communities like Nashville and Minneapolis, or they're coming from other parts of the country because they're being pushed away from the coast because of the high cost of living. So we have a real opportunity to attract people to this region because of all the advantages we offer and the great momentum we have in the jobs that we're creating.
And in fact, let's take a look at the Ohio population numbers in recent years. Some of these come out of the report you were referencing. There's also a statewide report that you provided that I could read. But from 2000 to 2012, Ohio was the 3rd worst population. It had the 3rd worst population growth in the United States. In other words, we're not attracting people,
right,
and we're not growing people, and it's a real problem. In 2014, 280,000, about 281,000 foreign born in Ohio, 4% of the Ohio population, but nationwide 13%. Mm-hmm. So if people think we have a lot of foreign born people here, relatively speaking, we don't.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. And we think that it's important for us to work to go where the country is headed instead of where the country has been. It's time for a whole new wave of immigration, and it's time for us here in this market to attract more people generally, but particularly more immigrants to our community. And it's interesting, we're working with cities all over the state of Ohio. So just up the road in Dayton, they started doing this work with Welcome Dayton a couple of years ago. Columbus, Cleveland, Toledo, Lucas County, Akron. They all have welcoming initiatives like ours, and we're working together in a network to say, how do we leverage what's happening in each of these communities to attract more immigrants to Ohio generally, and of course for us specifically to Cincinnati. But we're also part of a larger network of cities across the Midwest, led out of Global Detroit, who are saying, you know what, this is a great place to anchor yourself in the U.S., to own a home, to grow a family. And so we're working together to demonstrate the great opportunities that exist in the heartland. And then on an even larger level, there are chambers of commerce across the country, and I'll be with my peers from chambers across the country next week in Savannah, and we'll be talking about this very topic. We're all working to say our regions and our cities are open to immigrants. We want you to make a home here. Mm-hmm. Everyone has glommed on to the fact that this is a great way to grow population.
So let's take a look. There's also some numbers about the role of immigrants in a number of aspects of the economy, but entrepreneurship, which I think is particularly important here because that's where the economy grows. Now we're talking metro. So about 3.5% of the metro population is foreign born. That's taking in the entire Kentucky, northern Kentucky, southeast Indiana, southwest Ohio area. But 7.9% of the business owners, so twice the percentage of, more than twice percentage, are foreign born. And the number that really jumped out at me, 21% of Main Street business owners are foreign born. What's Main Street business owners?
Well, yeah, let's define that. So Main Street business owners can be everything from a hotel and a motel to a barbershop, a hair salon, an ethnic restaurant, a dry cleaners, and so on. And in fact, when we did the local data on the power of immigrants in our market, one of the things that we discovered is 100% of the net growth in Main Street businesses from 2000 to 2013 was from foreign-born owners. So there's huge opportunity in that. And so what that means is folks are coming into our community. They're using businesses that typically have a pretty low barrier to entry as a way to get themselves anchored in the community and to start to build wealth for their family and consequently spread it throughout the community as they grow it.
And the other side of that is those kinds of new businesses are creating jobs.
Well, they're creating jobs, certainly, you're absolutely right. The other thing they do is and the part of the reason they're called Main Street jobs is they create vitality at a street level. So in some of our business districts, which have maybe seen hard times since the economic slide, have actually starting to come back, can be brought back to life by people who are willing to invest in them, and immigrants are ready to do that. But also on the other end of the spectrum, as we look at entrepreneurs generally, the conventional wisdom is that if you've taken the leap and you've left your home country and sometimes left everything behind, as refugees do, then you probably aren't fearful of taking a leap and starting your own business. And we think that's one of the reasons why even high-skilled immigrants are much more likely to build their own business than native-born individuals are.
Well, and the important part about that is, because of other studies and other things we've talked about on this show, is that if you look at the last 2 decades of our economic history, almost all the growth has come from new businesses that are under 5 years old.
Right.
Because mature businesses, big corporations, they make it work by cutting people and finding efficiencies. These companies are creating jobs, not just for immigrants, but for everybody.
Right. Well, the Kauffman Foundation did that sort of seminal report that looked at that, and it's not actually startups that necessarily are generating huge numbers of jobs, but certainly growing companies who are in that initial growth stage, and we have great examples here in the region as well that are creating the most jobs.
Well, I mean, look at a place like Dunnhumby. Look at a place
8451.
84. Well,
Right,
now,
yeah.
8451.
Yeah. The great research people.
Surex. I mean, all these new companies, you look at who they start bringing in, how many jobs they're creating. That's the exciting part. And they're in these tech areas. So you need the IT people, you need the sophisticated programming people.
Well, and like you, I'm still digging into the data on the report again, but it does point out the fact that for every sort of high-tech job that we fill with someone from outside of the U.S., we are creating jobs for people who are already here. So it's really a myth that immigrants take away jobs from U.S. citizens. They actually help grow jobs.
We're almost out of time,
Yeah.
but does your initiative deal with people who are here who are undocumented?
When the mayor set up his task force, it was to look at immigrants in our community and to make everyone feel welcome. It's a much more complicated conversation around undocumented immigrants, but the fact of the matter is that those that are here have been here for more than 5 years, and they're part of our community and they're paying taxes.
Okay, paying a lot of taxes. And
Absolutely.
That's in the report too. Thank you very much. This is
You're welcome.
great work. Stay tuned. After the break, the story of a local 12 employee who now owns a minor league baseball team where what happens in the stands may be more important than what happens on the field. Okay, very good. Welcome back. If you have ever lived in a city without a Major League Baseball team, you probably know how important a minor league team can be as the rallying point for the community. Stadiums are smaller and the action is closer. Players aren't millionaire superstars and are more accessible. The goal is fun on the field and in the stands. The challenge for a minor league team that plays in the same market as a Major League franchise, like the Florence Freedom, that plays in the Frontier League 18 miles south of Great American Ballpark, well, that's different. That's the same challenge that faces the Lake Erie Crushers of Avon, Ohio, a town of 21,000 people 23 miles west of Cleveland. The Crushers also play in the Frontier League and are in town this weekend to play the Freedom. Last January, Tom Kramig purchased the Crushers. Besides having grown up here in Cincinnati and Wyoming, the interesting twist for me is that from 1985 to 92, Tom was a producer right here at the 6 o'clock news on Channel 12, harassing me constantly about how long it took me to tell in really important historical stories on the air. After Tom left the station, he formed ProCam Video, where I did all my post-production of my independent videos. But as a customer rather than a lowly reporter, he suddenly treated me with respect. Unlimited Coca-Colas and sandwich during editing sessions. Last December, Tom bought the Lake Erie Crushers, remaking himself again, this time as a sports mogul. Tom,
I'm not even sure what that is.
I'm not either, but it sounds good. Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
To Channel 12.
It's great to be back. I probably haven't been in this building in 20 years, and it has changed a bit.
It has,
It
yes.
has changed a bit, so.
And you have too?
Yes, we all have, haven't we? And congratulations on your recent retirement from the chamber.
Thank you. Yeah.
But not from life.
Not from life.
Not from life.
Not from life. I can still have fun doing this.
That's right.
And so what was it? You were out in Denver.
I've spent the last 10 years living in Denver, Colorado.
So what got you into the idea of buying a sports team, much less the specific team that you bought?
Well, you can't have grown up in Cincinnati in the 70s and not been a baseball fan with the Big Red Machine. And I have been a lifelong fan of the game. And it was interesting. People said, "Oh, did you always want to own a team?" Well, no, I wanted to play. Every kid wants to play, but you're not good enough. So you grow up and you do other things in life. But the love of the game has always been there. I've always been a fan of the game, always been a diehard fan of the Reds. It's kind of hard this year, but I'm still pulling for them. And so that dream sort of morphed into how can I be involved in sports and in the game. And it's always been an idea in the back of my head. Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool to own a team and run a team? But it was sort of way off in the distance. Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, my kids were getting older. They were getting ready to go off to college, and my wife and I were going to be empty nesters. And you sort of look at it and say, okay, I've got one move left. I'm in my early 50s, and I've got one change of career
I can tell
left.
you got multiple moves left.
Yeah, right.
From your early 50s. Okay, go ahead.
Right, from your vantage point. So you get online and you start researching things, and you look into it. Just sort of, again, wouldn't it be cool? It'll never happen, but the more I researched it, and the more I looked into it and really examined the finances behind it and the practicality of it, certain minor leagues, it really became attainable. So we started looking around at different leagues and different teams. And as I mentioned, I've been in Denver for the last 10 years. I wanted to come back to the Midwest. I'm an Ohio guy, born and raised here, wanted to be back here. Family is still back here. So we looked at a lot of different teams, and we were pointed to the team in Avon, Ohio, the Lake Erie Crushers, as part of the Frontier League. Researched the market. We're over on the west side of Cleveland in the western suburbs. Great sports fans up there, just diehard sports fans. And looking at the market dynamics and the growth in the area, and it just sort of kept progressing and kept progressing. And in February, we closed the deal, and I own a baseball team. I don't know how that happened, but and I'm running it day to day. I mean, I got in this not to be an absentee owner, not to sit in the owner's box and just watch the game, but to run a business.
Do you have a big dog that you could, as your owner's box?
Yeah, I do. I'd bring my dog to the ballpark all the time. But I got in this to run a business, to really learn the business side of it and run the front office. It's interesting. I own the team, but I'm arm's length from the team on the field. In the Frontier League, generally, the manager is sort of your player personnel guy. My friend said, "Oh, are you picking the players?" Well, no, I don't know who these guys are, these minor league guys. I'm not following it at that level. So the manager really works as that player personnel guy.
But I noticed that at the end of June, there was a shakeup in your manager and your
coaches.
There was
a shakeup, yeah.
Did that come from the front office?
That did come from front office, yes. And that's not easy to do. But we're trying to build a business and a business culture. I'm a big business culture kind of guy. And so that needs to permeate every aspect of the business, not just the front office, but the team on the field. And there were some things going on that we didn't like communication-wise, so we made a move, and we're very happy with the guy we have in place now.
Well, one of the things about it's true with the Reds, or I'm sure the Cleveland Indians, but it's also true with all minor league teams, that promotions that get people in besides the game. And I was looking at some of the promotions that the Crushers run. I just even love some of the names. So there's I got some of these to put on the screen, but there's reading nights.
Yeah.
Reading nights for Harry Potter and Dr. Seuss. Who's reading? The announcer or the kid? The kids bring the books, and I don't know. And then there's Wieners Wednesdays, Thirsty Thursdays, Salutes to Saturday for vets and for police officers, first responders, Bark in the Park, where you can bring your
dog to the ballpark,
and Boy Scout and Girl Scout sleepovers. I mean, this is a real part of the game in minor leagues.
Absolutely. Minor league baseball is about entertainment. We're in the entertainment business and the hospitality business. Most of the people who come to our games don't know the players, don't know if we won or lost, and a lot of times they don't care. They're looking for a fun night out. Where can I go with my kids and have a lot of fun that's affordable, that's not going to break the bank, where baseball is the background, but we're really in the family entertainment business. And so what happens when the ball is not in play is just as important as the game itself. People will walk out of the park and they'll remember the battle balls, the inflatable balls, and people crashing into each other, but they don't remember the final score of the game. And that's okay. That's fine. They walk out of the park and they had a good time.
So how many people, how big is your stadium, and how many people do you need to be drawing on at any one time?
Our stadium at capacity can hold just under 5,000.
Okay.
We've had, I want to say, 3 or 4 sellouts this year, which is wonderful. We love that. But we need to average, we have 48 home games in a summer. We start the second week of May and go to Labor Day. We need to average about 2,000 people per night. Now, when we took over the team, it was sort of in rough shape. Interest had fallen off, and we are definitely in a rebuilding project here. So we're not quite there. We're just under that. I think we're averaging like 1,900. So we're close. But we need to average about 2,000.
So it comes down then to sponsorships and all kinds of other ways, selling lots of hot dogs.
Thirsty Thursday, Wiener Wednesday, yeah, absolutely.
Lots of beer.
Yeah.
It's the profit on the hot dogs isn't as high as the profit on the beer, right?
Right.
So you play with the Florence Freedom. And,
yes, we do.
And when this is airing, you're going to be playing them this weekend.
Correct.
And are there sort of competitions that have developed over the years inside? There's 12 teams in this
12
league.
teams in a league, and it's a Midwest league, yep.
And do some of your players end up in the majors?
Oh, absolutely. We've already lost 4 players this year off our roster. Independent baseball, we're not affiliated.
Right.
So any major league organization can come cherry pick our roster. We lost our ace pitcher 3 weeks into the season to the Chicago White Sox organization. We lost our best hitter and center fielder to the Yankees organization.
Yankees.
The Yankees. And then we lost our catcher to the Pirates organization. And then we lost another player who went to play in Mexico because they could pay him more money down there.
Huh? Jeez. What
yeah. And it's a double-edged sword. You're really excited for these kids when it happens. You know, I mean, that's why they're playing, and it's so cool when that kid gets the call.
That's a huge jump.
That's a big jump.
But they're making it.
But on the other hand, you're stealing my best players, and I'm trying to win the title.
In the middle of the season.
In the middle of the season, there goes my ace, and there goes my best hitter. So, but it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. It's worth it.
Well, I want to make sure you're playing the Florence Freedom tonight, and the game is at 6:05 at UC Medical Center Field in Florence, Kentucky. You just take exit 180 going south. Tonight, by the way, is Ladies' Night with American Bachelor star Chris Soules, whoever that is. It is also Family Sunday, where the kids get to run the bases, and the players are available for autographs. Tom, it's great to be here.
Hang on one second.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to officially make you a Crusher fan.
Whoa.
There you go.
And you know, very important for people who have heads like me.
A little sunscreen up there.
And cheap Irish skin.
You can wear that on a golf course or come up to a game.
Swing hard, take
dirt. That's the key to good golf.
Very good.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Have a good week. It's great.